The movie begins by introducing us to a depressed man named Bill Marks. Bill is an air marshal going through a difficult time after the death of his daughter Olivia, who died of cancer. To cope with the pain, Bill has turned to alcohol, even while on duty. During a break to smoke a cigarette, a man named Tom approaches him, asks to borrow a lighter, and tries to start a conversation by asking where he's headed. Bill doesn't respond, but Tom mentions he's on his way to Amsterdam. Bill continues scanning his surroundings, making sure everything is in order on the flight. Shortly after, we see Bill in the bathroom where he runs into another air marshal, Jack Hammond. Then Bill notices a young girl named Becca traveling alone who accidentally leaves behind her doll. Becca is escorted onto the plane by a friendly flight attendant named Nancy. The girl is nervous about boarding, but when Bill appears with her doll, she feels happy and gets on without issue. The passengers begin settling in, and a young man named Zach sits next to Bill. A woman named Jen approaches Zach and asks to swap seats so she can sit by the window. He agrees. Meanwhile, Nancy is happy to see her fellow flight attendant Gwen on board, as this will lighten her workload. The pilots, Captain David and Kyle Rice, perform their pre-flight checks. During this time, Bill receives messages from his superiors, assuring them everything is under control. As a marshal, he must conceal his identity and act like a regular passenger to avoid causing alarm. Bill pretends to be afraid of flying and ties a ribbon to his hand that his daughter had given him. After a slightly turbulent takeoff, the plane stabilizes and Jen asks him about his daughter. Bill lies, saying she's 17 years old. When he asks about her job, she avoids answering, claiming she needs to sleep. The plane is now above the clouds when Bill heads to the bathroom to smoke. Upon returning to his seat, he receives a text message from an unknown number. The sender claims to be one of the passengers and says they saw Bill smoking in the bathroom. Disturbed, Bill looks around, trying to identify the culprit, but sees nothing suspicious. He stands up for a better view while Jen watches him from the corner of her eye. He then moves to another section of the plane but still finds nothing unusual. The mysterious passenger instructs him to set a 20-minute timer, warning that, when it runs out, someone on the plane will die. The stranger also demands $150 million and sends a bank account number. Bill passes by Jack and signals him to meet. A passenger named Riley seems very attentive to what's happening. Bill suspects Jack sent the messages and asks him to stop, but Jack denies it and offers his phone to prove his innocence. Bill explains the situation, but Jack is unconvinced that anyone could commit murder and get away with it on a plane. Bill asks Jack to watch over the main cabin while he goes to the cockpit to inform the captain. The captain tells him they are flying over the Atlantic, meaning an emergency landing is not possible. Bill suggests they trace the bank account and shut down the plane's network to prevent the hijacker from confirming whether the transfer has been made. Using the onboard security cameras, Bill reviews footage with Nancy and then calls Jen over to help since there are too many cameras. He gives them pens and asks them to mark people using their phones while he tries to get more messages from the hijacker. Bill gets a call from a man on the ground named Marinik, from the TSA, the agency he works for. Meanwhile, Jen notices Jack has been using his phone constantly, but Bill dismisses this, saying it can't be him. Marinik hears this and advises not to jump to conclusions. The hijacker mentions Bill's daughter, causing him to doubt Jack's innocence. Jack leaves his seat, so Bill follows him to the bathroom. When confronted, Jack admits he needed the money. They begin to fight, and Jack manages to destroy his phone by soaking it. When he tries to pull a weapon, Bill has no choice but to kill him. Exiting the bathroom, he receives another message from the hijacker congratulating him on the first kill and demanding he restart the timer. Another person will die in 20 minutes if the money isn't transferred. Bill returns to the cockpit and the captain informs him, shocked, that the bank account belongs to Bill, which incriminates him. Jen overhears the conversation. The TSA orders the captain to confiscate Bill's badge and weapon, and the captain reluctantly complies. With Jen's help, Bill manages to fix Jack's phone and discovers that the hijacker had kept him distracted in order to frame him. He also mentions a briefcase that Jack had. Bill finds the key in Jack's pocket and opens the case, discovering it contains cocaine. This explains Jack's pleas, as he thought Bill had found the drugs. Nancy calls Jack, which forces Bill to reveal that he is dead, terrifying her. However, he manages to calm her down. Using Jack's badge, Bill organizes a random search of passengers to try to find the hijacker as time is running out. He starts by searching several passengers, including Jen, whom he also asks to keep watch. He then interrogates Fahim, who turns out to be a doctor, and later Charles, a lawyer. Finally, he reaches Riley, who identifies himself as a cop. Shortly after receiving a message from the hijacker telling him to stop playing games, Bill sees Tom, the man he had spoken to while smoking before the flight, who had mentioned he was heading to Amsterdam. Bill grabs him and drags him into the aisle. At that moment, Marinick calls and confirms Tom's identity as a professor, but Bill isn't convinced and begins interrogating him. Tom confesses he was paid to ask Bill where he was headed. Bill drags him down the aisle and demands he point out who hired him. Tom identifies a man with glasses and Bill takes him over, bumping into passengers along the way. However, while the man resembles the suspect, it's not him. Bill proceeds to restrain Tom. When he checks his watch, he sees there are only 49 seconds left before the next death. With his weapon in hand, Bill stays alert but then receives a message saying that the next victim doesn't have to be a passenger. Bill rushes to Nancy, but the plane hits turbulence and he falls. Later, he finds Nancy and they go to the cockpit where they find the captain convulsing while Kyle tries to hold him. Bill calls for Dr. Fahim, who suggests it might be poisoning but isn't very helpful. Bill restarts the countdown timer and instructs Kyle to keep the cockpit door locked until landing. Later, Jen introduces Zach, a programmer, who suggests it's possible to locate the hijacker's phone by sending it a virus embedded in an image, which would force the device to ring. Bill gives him his phone to work on it, emphasizing that time is critical. Shortly after, Bill announces that he will close off the business section to keep all passengers together. Although they protest, he calms them by promising fictional free flights if they cooperate. Zach finishes the job and returns the phone to Bill. Armed, Bill tells everyone to raise their hands while he sends the image. Listening carefully, he hears a ringtone and follows the sound to Charles, who denies the phone is his. Bill aggressively interrogates him, but Charles seems clueless. Suddenly, Charles begins to convulse and dies, just like the captain had. In the main cabin, Riley gathers a group to attack Bill after the doctor announces the deaths of Charles and the captain. Bill is later seen smoking again in the bathroom, where he discovers a small hole that leads directly into the cockpit. Checking the sink, he finds a thin tube that could have been used to administer poison by blowing through it. He inspects Charles's body and finds a small injection needle embedded. Bill questions a female passenger who had used the bathroom earlier, who reveals that Jen used it after her. When Bill confronts Jen, he asks why she sat next to him and stayed so close. Jen confesses she has a terminal illness, and doctors have told her she could die at any moment. She only wanted a window seat to enjoy the view. Bill apologizes. Since Bill has the hijacker's phone, Jen tries to guess the password but accidentally triggers a bomb. Meanwhile, the news reports that Bill is the hijacker. Desperate, he pieces everything together and realizes the only way the bomb could have made it on board was through Jack, since air marshals aren't searched. Bill finds the bomb beneath a briefcase full of cocaine, but as he exits, he's attacked by Riley's group, who try to strangle him. Bill tells them about the bomb, and moments later, Tom saves him by pointing Bill's gun at the group, forcing them to back off. Soon after, 2 fighter jets arrive to escort the plane and order co-pilot Kyle to maintain his current course until landing. Bill asks Kyle to descend to 8,000 feet to minimize the bomb's impact if it goes off, but Kyle asks for more time to get closer to Iceland, as they're still over open ocean. Out of options, Bill places the bomb at the rear door and asks passengers to pile heavy luggage on it to reduce the damage. Then he tells Kyle to begin descent in exactly 3 minutes. Meanwhile, Becca, terrified, hides. Gwen tries to coax her out but fails. Bill gives her his ribbon and manages to bring her over to Jen. Marinick calls Bill to confirm that the payment has gone through, and Bill puts the call on speaker so the hijacker can hear it. However, Marinick still believes Bill is behind everything. At that moment, he mentions a video uploaded by one of the passengers showing Bill dragging Tom. Bill identifies the passenger who uploaded it and checks his phone. In the video, he sees Tom placing a phone in Charles's pocket. Tom, now nervous, grabs Riley's gun and takes him hostage, but the gun isn't loaded. Riley manages to punch Tom and retrieve the gun, but Zach now has the ammunition. A fight breaks out between Zach and Riley. Zach loads the weapon and shoots Riley. The chaos gives Tom the chance to grab Bill's gun and take him hostage too. Meanwhile, Kyle requests permission to descend, but the fighter jets deny it. Tom and Zach officially take control of the plane. Tom declares that security is a sham and that no one is truly safe anywhere. His plan is to parachute out once the plane descends, but Bill convinces Zach that this won't happen as they haven't been granted permission to land. At that moment, Tom shoots Zach. Kyle, with no other options, begins the descent despite the fighter jet's orders. Tom continues mocking Bill, but when the plane reaches 8,000 feet, Bill finally manages to take him down. Zach, still alive, attacks Bill again, but the bomb's countdown reaches 0. Bill moves away just in time, allowing Zach to be blown up along with the bomb. In the distance, a landing strip comes into view as Kyle struggles to keep control of the plane after one of the engines explodes. He dumps excess fuel and performs an emergency landing. Becca nearly falls out of the plane, but Bill and Jen manage to grab her in time. At last, the plane comes to a stop and everyone is safe. Becca returns Bill's ribbon, no longer needing its comfort. The movie ends with a hint of something developing between Bill and Jen. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell so you never miss a recap. See you in the next one.